My son entered my room while I was asleep, a true tale of betrayal. This story would undoubtedly top my list of things I would never do in my life, yet here I find myself. Setting aside all my fears and regrets to unveil my secret. Some things are meant to be expressed, not kept bottled up inside. Jonathan was 23 years old, tall, intelligent, and exuded an undeniable confidence. When I first encountered him at the door, he was there with a subtle smile, holding his suitcase in hand. I still recall those eyes, blue like the summer sky, gazing at me as if they wished to convey something beyond a simple, "Hello, Annabelle, this is Jonathan. I mentioned him to you, didn't I?" Gregory smiled warmly as he assisted his son in bringing his luggage inside. "Certainly," I responded, making an effort to maintain a tone that felt as ordinary as I could manage. "Welcome back." Jonathan entered with a relaxed yet refined demeanor. In that moment, an inexplicable sensation washed over me. He remarked, moving in closer than I had anticipated, "Conversing with you consistently brings me a sense of returning to my rightful place." My heart raced. Jonathan spoke with a serene demeanor. Yet his gaze revealed a profound intensity beneath the surface. I attempted to maintain my composure. "Feeling at home is a good thing," I said, though I couldn't bring myself to meet his gaze. A heavy reminder that something was quietly slipping from your grasp. "Annabelle," Jonathan spoke my name for the first time, his voice low and gentle. I glanced over at him. In that moment, the distance between us was so minimal, I could sense the warmth of his breath. "Don't," I said, my voice quaking, though I couldn't tell if I was trying to halt him or restrain my own impulses. Jonathan gazed at me, as though he were seeking an answer hidden within my eyes. A peculiar feeling surged within me, a blend of trepidation and excitement, then, as if aware of the tension in my gaze, Jonathan took a small step back. "Apologies if I caused you any discomfort," he expressed, his tone soft yet earnest. I felt as though I had escaped from an unseen hold, yet, rather than experiencing relief, I was struck by a peculiar sense of emptiness. "It's not that," I replied, even though I didn't truly believe what I was saying. From that moment on, keeping the distance between us grew increasingly difficult. The looks that lasted a second too long, the silences that felt heavy with unexpressed thoughts. Jonathan never crossed the line. Yet his mere presence ensnared me in a labyrinth of feelings. That night, rain poured down relentlessly, wrapping the whole house in the soothing, rhythmic sound of falling droplets. Drifting beyond the panes, Jonathan and I lounged in the living room, engrossed in an old classic film. The sole barrier between us was a lone throw pillow. Yet I could sense the warmth emanating from him. As the film came to a close, I stood to straighten up the room, but Jonathan unexpectedly broke the silence. "Annabelle, I've never experienced this level of intimacy with anyone before." I stood still, as though his words had transformed me into a statue. I turned back and met Jonathan's gaze. His eyes no longer concealed his emotions. My heart thudded heavily in my chest. I ought to have turned and left, yet my feet seemed anchored to the ground. Those moments stretched on endlessly. And when Jonathan softly grasped my hand, time itself appeared to freeze, time, rationale, and every bit of reasoning I had held onto. "It's quite late. I must go to bed," I stammered, retracting my hand as though I had touched something scalding. Jonathan did not utter nothing, merely remained there in silence. The gaze he held was steeped in disappointment. It felt as if all logic faded away. He moved ahead, just a couple of paces, yet it seemed as though the distance between us disappeared completely. The space around us felt as if it was closing in, leaving just the two of us in a world of our own. Jonathan softly grasped my hand. "Kindly, stop fleeing from me." His hand was warm, strong, yet soft in a way that felt like a soothing melody against my frantic heart. "Jonathan, this isn't right," I said, but my voice was frail, like a whisper lost in the breeze. He leaned in slightly. The space between us now just a breath away. The fresh, earthy aroma of him hung in the atmosphere, causing me to lose my sense of direction. The warmth of his breath brushed softly against my cheek. "At times, the whispers of the heart hold the only truth," Jonathan murmured, and then, he bent down. "A soft kiss, akin to an unspoken inquiry I found impossible to decline. I found myself utterly speechless in the face of it. I allowed my feelings to take control, surrendering to a tempest of emotions. Jonathan leaned down again, his breath warm against my lips. Drawing me into his embrace, a blend of safety and peril all at once, the rain outside flowed on like an unending melody, and inside that house, the last boundary between logic and feeling vanished for all time. I stirred from my slumber in the stillness of the night, as the moonlight danced softly through the delicate curtains. The ceiling, a pristine white, appeared as though it were enveloped in a soft, ethereal haze. The rain had ceased, creating a haunting stillness so deep that I could discern the steady cadence of breathing next to me. Jonathan. I turned softly and gazed at him while he slept. His face so serene it pained me to behold. His long eyelashes fluttered gently, as if he were lost in a sweet dream. In that moment, my heart constricted as if an unseen thread was drawn tight. I quietly pondered, how did it ever come to this? Yet, all that followed was an echo of silence. I extended my hand and gently ran my fingers through his tousled hair. Something Gregory had never offered me throughout all the years we had shared. In that moment, I realized I hadn't merely crossed the line, I had utterly lost myself. I acquiesced. A quiet capitulation in my frailty. Jonathan softly embraced me, as though the universe beyond us had faded away. We moved forward without hesitation, the lines between right and wrong blurred, and the divide between morality and desire vanished. The warmth of Jonathan's heartbeat was the only reminder that, regardless of right or wrong, my heart had already made its choice. I understood that from this moment forward, there would be no turning back. The morning in the tranquil suburb was so calm that I could hear the birds chirping outside the window, experiencing the blend of softness and fervor in each caress. My heart appeared to resonate with the cadence of his heartbeat. Then, just this once, don't concern yourself with right or wrong. I pondered whether I could progress without everything crumbling around me. Or have I already ventured too far to return? In the days that followed, an unusual stillness enveloped the villa. Not due to a lack of conversation or laughter, but because the quietude embraced a multitude of unexpressed feelings. Everything continued as it always did, breakfast with Gregory, light chatter about work, yet beneath that veneer of normalcy, Jonathan and I felt like two wandering spirits confined within the same space. Each time our gazes collided unexpectedly. It was straightforward. It was a question, yet it held 1,000 unspoken meanings that we both grasped. I paused, my eyes locked on the undulating surface of the coffee in my cup, as if I were engaging in a silent exchange with him. Would cause the truth to emerge. Yes, everything's fine, I replied, though my voice resonated in my thoughts, less robust than I had anticipated. Jonathan remained quiet for a considerable time before giving a slight nod, yet his eyes, those intense, probing eyes, gazed at me, filled with a multitude of unasked questions. In the days that followed, challenges only intensified. Jonathan maintained the silent vow we had never voiced, preserving just the right amount of space so to avoid arousing Gregory's suspicions. Yet I sensed the tension in each fleeting glance and every strained, awkward smile. One afternoon, while Gregory was out meeting a client, I stepped out onto the porch for a breath of fresh air. "Have you ever thought about how much easier things might have been?" he inquired, shattering the stillness. I gazed at him, uncertain of how to reply, more straightforward, "No." I shook my head. My voice gentle. The most genuine emotions are invariably the most intricate. Jonathan offered a slight smile, though it carried a hint of sadness. "Indeed, I can't help but long for a simpler situation." I moved in closer, the space between us reduced to a mere breath. "Jonathan, we've made a choice that can't be undone," I murmured, my eyes drifting down to the wooden planks beneath us, as if evading his gaze might somehow lighten the burden of what I had just said. "However, I'm uncertain if I can continue on while pretending it never occurred." He turned to look at me, and for a fleeting moment, his eyes appeared to quiver. "Then don't forget," Jonathan said softly, yet his voice held a gravity that rattled me to my very core. At that instant, I realized that the discomfort, the anxiety, and the facade couldn't endure indefinitely, the unspoken words would only fester like a smoldering ember, waiting for the moment it ignites into a fierce blaze. But at this moment, I was uncertain about what I would do when that fire engulfed everything. That afternoon lingered far longer than I anticipated. The sun gracefully descended beneath the horizon, casting the lake in vibrant shades of orange before it vanished into the embrace of night. Yet, within me, all remained entwined, a complex web of emotions lacking resolution. Jonathan remained there silently observing me, his gaze brimming with feelings I recognized all too well. However, this time, I couldn't allow the silence to linger any further. I inhaled deeply, as though summoning every ounce of bravery that remained inside me. Jonathan. We can't continue down this path, I declared, my voice shaking yet firm. He remained quiet, his gaze chilling in response to my words. I understood he was anticipating my explanation, yet his silence pained me more than anything else. Gregory is a decent person, and he truly doesn't deserve this kind of treachery, I went on. We have crossed a line, and I can no longer deceive myself. Or to him. Jonathan shook his head, his eyes sparkling with a fierce determination. You think I'm unaware of that. I do, but you understand how unfeasible this is, don't you? He moved closer, just within reach, and I could hear the shaky rhythm of our breaths intertwining. How can I possibly ignore this when it remains so present between us? I shut my eyes, attempting to hold back the tears that were already on the verge of spilling over. This emotion will forever endure, however, we must release it, Jonathan. Jonathan gazed at me. Yet I understood this was the right choice to make. Thus, this is where it concludes, Jonathan inquired gently, his voice trembling. I chose not to respond. I gazed at him, filled with all the sincerity and heartbreak that resided within me. At last, he released a deep breath, and took a step back. I saw that gesture as his means of coming to terms with it. He didn't bid me farewell directly, yet I caught a glimpse of him from afar as he packed his bags into the car. The vehicle glided down the driveway, trailing a delicate plume of dust in the soft glow of the morning's first light. I lingered at the window for what seemed like forever, sensing that a piece of my heart had departed with him. Yet, I understood that this was the sole path for us to progress without utterly unraveling everything. 3 months later, Gregory remained in the dark about what had transpired between me and Jonathan. He came back home from each business trip with a cheerful smile, and little presents for me. We endeavored to embody the essence of family life. Yet I couldn't shake the lingering nights filled with dreams of Jonathan's gaze, and his last, softly spoken words. How could this ever slip your mind? One afternoon, as I strolled by the lake, I paused to gaze at the tranquil surface of the water. My reflection shimmered, faint and distorted, in the clear, rippling waves. A gentle breeze swept through my hair, and in that instant, I understood that life is never flawless. It is constructed from decisions and setbacks. I knew I would forever hold onto the memory of Jonathan, and the instant my heart went astray, however,